I'm Debbie. Standing in the yard of what should have been a peaceful seaside home, there's a tense silence. The folding chairs are scattered, the cooler is half open, and the potato salad sits forgotten on the table. It's my parents' 50th anniversary party, but it's turned into a battlefield. My mother, Helen, and father, Carl, are standing near the truck, their faces a mix of confusion and sadness. They've always been the gentle souls of our family. My mother used to be a librarian, and her quiet intellect and kindness were like a warm fire in the cold winters. My father was a mechanic. He could fix anything with his calloused hands and a determined look in his eyes. They'd worked hard all their lives, facing years of financial struggles and still remaining pillars of strength. My in-laws, on the other hand, are a different story. My husband, Ryan's mother, Elise, is a force of nature. At 60, she's as sharp-tongued as ever and always seems to think she knows best. Ryan's younger brother, Jake, is a bit of a schemer, always looking for the next quick buck. As Elise stalks across the yard with a glass of wine in her hand, her eyes fixed on me, I take a deep breath. I'm wearing my military uniform, a symbol of discipline and order in this chaos. I know she's about to say something that will cut deep, but I've prepared for this moment. Is the captain here to ruin her own parents' party? She sneers, her voice loud enough for everyone to hear. Going to make a scene in front of everyone? I look around at the faces turned towards me, some full of expectation, some tinged with doubt due to the stories Elise has spread in the past few days. I set my cup of water down on the table gently and reach into the folder under my arm. One by one, I lay out the documents, the deed with my name on it, the court filing, the county cease and desist, and the notice from the booking platform. I'm not going to make a scene, Elise. I don't need to, I say, my voice calm. I'm calm. That should worry you. Her eyes fall to the papers, and for the first time, she really sees my name on the deed. Her smile fades, but she tries to cover it with a shout. This is my family's house. We made it work. I let her rant for a few seconds. In the silence that follows, I turn to the people around me and speak clearly. There's one name on the title to this house. It's mine. I bought it for my mother and father with 10 years of my hard-earned money. Let me take you back. 10 years ago, I was a young soldier with big dreams. I'd gotten into college on a military scholarship, a way to escape the financial struggles of my family's life. I worked my way up in the military, from a logistics officer to a captain. I saw the harsh realities of war, but I also learned the value of saving and being prepared. My parents had always dreamed of a seaside house. I remember the time when I was 10, we took a rare trip to the coast. My mother stood at the railing, listening to the sound of the waves, and said, "Wouldn't it be wonderful to fall asleep to this every night?" That moment was etched in my memory. I saved every penny I could. Deployment pay, small inheritances, and every bonus went into a special account. After years of hard work, I found the perfect house. It was a big, weathered house on a bluff in Ocean View Cove. It had a porch that faced the ocean and a kitchen big enough for my mother to create her little world. I closed on the house from a base overseas, signing the papers on a folding desk, miles away from the place I was making my dream come true. The plan was simple. Drive my parents up for their 50th anniversary, hand them the keys, and watch the joy on my mother's face as she listened to the ocean. But towards the end of my deployment, things started to go wrong. The last 2 months of my time overseas, my connection to home was spotty at best. Ryan offered to take care of the house, to get it ready for the party. I was grateful. He'd rarely been this helpful, and looking back, it was the first red flag. The utility bills started to climb. Water, power, everything. I called Ryan and asked about it. He said he'd been running the heat, but something didn't feel right. When I asked him to forward the account login so I could check the bills myself, he kept putting it off. My parents mentioned that Ryan's family had been out at the coast a lot, helping. My mother, being the kind-hearted soul she is, wouldn't say much. But when she mentioned it twice, I knew there was more to the story. I reached out to the legal office on base, trying to figure out how to add my parents to the household records. But I was stuck overseas, in the middle of a mission I couldn't leave, and I felt helpless. Ryan sent me a picture of the living room, all cleaned up. But the angle was odd, like he was hiding something. I stared at that picture, wondering what was really going on inside the house I'd worked so hard for. Finally, the day of my return arrived. I landed at the local airport, rented a car still in my uniform, and drove towards the coast. As I turned onto the gravel drive, my heart sank. There were 3 unfamiliar cars in the yard. A little guest parking sign was stuck in my mother's flower bed. The porch, where my father had planned to hang a set of wind chimes he'd bought with his meager savings to celebrate their anniversary, was bare. I could hear strangers laughing inside the house, and my stomach knotted. When I stepped onto the porch, I saw my mother. She was 70 years old, wearing her favorite blue sweater, crying with her hand over her mouth. My father was sitting on the steps, 2 suitcases beside him, his hands shaking violently. Before I could say a word, the screen door banged open, and Elise came out. She was wearing a fancy sundress, sipping a glass of wine at what must have been noon. She saw my mother and pointed at the driveway. "This is our house. Get out." My mother flinched as if she'd been physically slapped. My father tried to stand up but couldn't. Every fiber of my being wanted to lash out, but I remembered my training. I set my duffel bag down slowly and let the silence work for me. I walked into the house. The rooms had numbers on the doors, like a motel. My mother's dream kitchen had a folding table with a guest book and a check in 3 p.m. Sign. The whole place smelled of bleach and artificial lemon, a contrast to my mother's warm, natural lemon oil smell. Jake walked out of the hall, towels stacked on his arm like a bellhop. When he saw me, he stopped so abruptly that a towel fell to the floor. Ryan stood in the corner, his face pale. "Debbie, honey, you're early," he said, his voice weak. I looked around and stated the obvious. "You're running it like a hotel." The look between Ryan and Jake told me everything. They were in this together. I took my parents to a nearby ocean front motel. While they settled in, I sat down with a legal pad and started making a list. Who was living in my house? Who had put the listing up? And where was all the money going? The next day, I found a lawyer, Mrs. Thompson. She had an office above a bakery in the nearby town. I laid the deed on her desk. "My name. Only my name," I told her. She explained to me the legal process. In this state, once someone has been residing in a place, I couldn't just evict them. I'd have to go through the court, the Fed process. But she also pointed out that since they were running an unlicensed short-term rental, I had some leverage. I started gathering evidence. That night, I found the listing online. Ocean View Cove Luxury Retreat, hosted by Jake. It was renting for $350 a night, and the calendar was full. The photos showed my parents' master bedroom, dressed up for strangers. At the bottom of the photos, there was a picture of a storage shed labeled Owner's Quarters. They'd turned my parents into storage. My mother told me what had happened. They'd arrived as planned, only to be told by Jake that there was a scheduling overlap and they'd have to stay in the cottage for the busy season. They'd complied, being too kind to cause a scene. My mother was told not to use the big kitchen so as not to confuse the guests. My father had hung the wind chimes on the porch, but Jake said a guest had complained about the noise. So, my father, who had never asked for anything in his life, took them down and put them away. I was furious, but I also knew I had to be strategic. I gathered all the evidence, the screenshots of the listing, the booking calendar, the laminated card in the kitchen. Mrs. Thompson prepared a notice to vacate and filed the necessary paperwork. Ryan came to the motel that night. He looked haggard, like the weight of the world was on his shoulders. He finally told me the truth. His construction business had failed 18 months ago. He'd been drowning in debt, almost $55,000, and he'd been using the money from the rental to pay it off. He then said, "Can you just let it go? Leave my mom out of it. It's marital property anyway." I looked at him, the man I'd loved for so many years, and said, "I'm sorry about the debt, Ryan. But you let your family treat my parents like this, and when I fight back, you ask me to stop. The house is for my parents, and the debt is yours. We're done." The notice to vacate was delivered, but as expected, Elise tore it up. Jake laughed it off, and his aunt, who was also there, said some unkind things. They thought they could outweight me, but they didn't know the power of the law. I opened 3 fronts. I filed the Fed in court, reported the unlicensed short-term rental to the county code enforcement, and informed the booking platform of the ownership dispute. Strangely enough, our ally came in the form of a guest, a schoolteacher named Lisa, who was staying in the house with her husband. She received a notice from the booking platform about the ownership review. She did some research, found out the truth, and reached out to me. She offered to be a witness. On Friday, the booking platform took down the listing, canceled the upcoming bookings, and froze Jake's account. The county code enforcement posted a cease and desist notice on the front door. That night, my father pulled out the wind chimes he'd saved. "I kept these safe in case," he said quietly. I took my unit's challenge coin out of my pocket and placed it in his hand. "Hold on to this until Saturday. It's good in a tight spot." Saturday arrived. The yard was filled with family and friends, but the atmosphere was tense. Elise was still trying to act like the hostess, ignoring the notice on the door. When I laid out the documents on the table, the truth was laid bare for everyone to see. Elise tried to fight back, but there was no argument left in her. Jake looked defeated as his phone pinged with more cancellation emails. We finally asked them to leave by 5 p.m. Dustin left first, realizing the financial consequences. Elise took her time, collecting her things slowly, but eventually, they all left. My parents moved into the house that evening. My mother walked into the kitchen, took a deep breath, and started to polish the banister with lemon oil. The house finally smelled like home again. My father hung the wind chimes back on the porch, and the sound of the wind through them was like music. My mother closed her eyes, just like she did that day when I was 10. As for Ryan, we're still in the process of figuring things out. But I know one thing for sure. Loving someone doesn't mean giving them the keys to everything you've built. Sometimes, you have to draw a line, and this line was long overdue. This house, with my name on the deed, is a symbol of my love for my parents and the boundaries I'm willing to defend.